All right, welcome to lecture number 27. Today we are talking about the market revolution and industrialization in the early 19th century. Our theme for today is work, exchange, and technology. Our learning objective is explain the causes and effects of the innovations in technology, agriculture, and commerce over time. So let's look at the foundation for the market revolution here. Entrepreneurs helped to create a market revolution in production and commerce in which market relationships between producers and consumers came to prevail as the manufacture of goods became more organized. All right, so there is some foundation that has to do with the US Constitution. And first, we begin with the enforcement of contracts. This is any sort of deal and purchase that would get made between a seller and a buyer. That's what's covered here with contracts. And in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1, it says that the Constitution is going to uphold contracts and make sure that neither state or any other private party will get in the way of a private contract. This is upheld in the court case decision of Dartmouth College versus Woodward in 1819, decided by Chief Justice John Marshall, strengthening the power of the federal government. We also have protection of patents explicitly stated in the Constitution. The Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8, it says that patents are going to be protected by the U.S. government, and that if you have an idea and you tell the U.S. government about it, you file a patent, that no one else can make money off of your idea or your invention. And so on the right side here, you see a picture of the cotton gin, the patents that Eli Whitney filed with the U.S. Patent Office in 1794. And then finally, we have the development of corporations. So states like New York are expanding the ability of corporations to sell stock. This opens up big opportunities for companies to raise a lot of capital and invest in large enterprises like factories or other machinery. It raises revenue, and the people who invest money in that stock are not liable for those debts. So it's a very attractive offer for people who are trying to invest and make money. All of these three things coupled together show that it is an attractive environment for entrepreneurs, people who go into business, to feel secure that their investment, their hard work is going to pay off, and it's going to be backed by the federal government if it is ever infringed. Now let's talk about some of the innovations that we see in this period. Innovations including textile machinery, steam engines, interchangeable parts, the telegraph, and agricultural inventions increase the efficiency of production methods. So textile machinery is brought over from England by Samuel Slater. He brings over all of the trade secrets for the textile industry in Britain. At the time, England was trying to keep all of those factory knowledge and machine parts a secret from the rest of the world in order to keep their comparative advantage. Lowell, Massachusetts is the town that becomes the model for a factory town. You see all of these mills and factories spring up, and they are all based in the textile industry. They are going to begin hiring women as a source of cheap labor. The only women who are being hired here are young, unmarried, single women. Anytime that a woman would find a husband or find a mate, they could no longer continue to work at the mill. And that is partly because all of the women, all of the workers lived on site. Now, for steam engines, this helps the economy and the market revolution in two ways. The first is that factories no longer have to be near streams or rivers. So they used to be powered by hydroelectric power. And the invention of the steam engine now allows for factories to be placed anywhere, closer to the coast or further inland, depending on where people live and where they see it as being more profitable. And rivers become two-lane highways now with the power of the steam engine. So Robert Fulton puts a steam engine into a boat, and now steamboats can travel upriver at a very slow pace at the time, so it was about 5 miles an hour, but it was revolutionary because now all of the products that were normally only going downstream can also go upstream to more people that would buy them. Continuing on, the interchangeable parts. This concept was proven with guns by Eli Whitney during the War of 1812. He developed this into a larger business. You see his gun factory, or a painting of his gun factory in 1827 here on the top left. This is going to help increase efficiency and lower costs. So it also is going to help whenever a invention or product is broken, you can easily find a replacement part and continue to use that machine or that invention without having to buy a new one or make a new one. The telegraph, developed by Samuel Morse in 1844, so not just this invention or this patented version of the telegraph, but also Morse code that went along with it. It helped communication between the different regions of the United States, and then later on there'll be a telegraph cable that gets placed across the Atlantic, and so now it's linking two continents together. But for the most part, the telegraph lines are being placed along railroad tracks. For agricultural inventions, we have a couple. The steel plow, you see a very small patent on the right side here of the screen of what the steel plow used to look like, and also the mechanical reaper. Both of these inventions are allowing people to plant across a larger field with fewer manpower or with fewer workers. So it's going to lead to the growth of commercial farming, now that you can plant more and sell more of your surplus, over subsistence farming. Subsistence farming was really just farming to get enough food for one's family. This, coupled with the cheap land out west, is going to increase the amount of commercial farms in the United States that are going to export their food to the growing urban areas in the East Coast. All right, so for transportation, the way in which we're going to transport these goods from one place to another. Legislation and judicial systems supported the development of roads, canals, and railroads, which extended and enlarged markets and helped foster regional interdependence. So for roads, we have a national road. It's called the Cumberland Road, and it linked Maryland to Illinois. This was a very rare thing for the time period. Most other roads were private. They were turnpikes or toll roads, because at the time it was not accepted, or an accepted role for the federal government to be paying for roads across the different states. They thought, or Democratic Republicans at the time thought, that it should fall upon the states to fund their own internal improvements or fund their own transportation projects. So for canals, the Erie Canal was proposed in the House of Representatives, but it failed because of that same reason, that there was not enough support, not enough political support for it. And so it fell upon the state of New York to construct it. And as you can see in the map in the middle, it connects the Hudson River to the Great Lakes. And so now all of these people are able to buy goods from each other and transport goods back and forth. Railroads began to be competitive with other modes of transportation by the 1830s. This, along with steamboats at the very early beginning stages, they were rather dangerous, because if too much pressure built up in the steam engine, it would actually explode and kill all the people on board. But by the 1830s, the process becomes more standard. And the interdependence that is created. So the urban Northeast is no longer planting its own crops, its own food, and now they're relying on the Midwest to plant that food in commercial farming enterprises and ship it back to the East Coast. Cotton is being refined in the northern factory, so it's grown in the south, and then all the textile mills in the north are importing it, turning it into cloth that can be sold back to the rest of the country. All right, so transportation networks link the North and Midwest more closely than they link the regions in the South. And so you can see this in the two maps that are included here. Old as they might be, you can still see a difference. In the top map, you see all the highways of the United States in about 1825. There are a lot more connections happening in the East, in the Northeast, and in the West. And then the clearest difference is in the map on the bottom right. You see it's a canal map of the United States in 1825, and really the majority, almost all of the canals, are located in the Northeast. So the North is becoming more reliant on the food crops in the Midwest. That's why they're investing more heavily in that transportation. Also, the North has more capital to invest in new transportation, because they're making a lot of money from the factories. They're looking to increase their economic activity in other sectors like finance and insurance. And the South is still relying more on rivers. So you can see it on the bottom right map that there are more rivers, natural waterways that lead to the coast. So a large portion of the cotton crop was also going to Britain, so there is less of an incentive to make a road going up north. And then finally, most plantations are located near rivers that went to the coast. Now, these two transportation maps are going to become relevant again as we get closer to the Civil War, because in that war, the North's ability to get troops to the southern lines is going to be really important. And the South's inability to keep up with that kind of movement is also going to play a role in their defeat. All right, so increasing southern cotton production and the related growth of northern manufacturing, banking, and shipping industries promoted the development of national and international commercial ties. So we've already talked about how the North and the South were interconnected due to cotton. So cotton was being refined in northern factories. The textile that was produced and sold in the North were dependent on on slavery that was extracting that cotton from the plantations. And then as plantations expanded, it also increased the use of enslaved labor. So now all of the banks and the insurance companies that are involved in the purchases of land, in the purchases of enslaved people, are all complicit. Shipping companies transporting goods see an increase in business transporting goods made because of or continuing to support slavery. So this was an institution that was touching every part of the economy because of how interconnected the economy was becoming. All right, finally for a recap, entrepreneurship was protected by the Constitution and upheld by the Supreme Court, leading to this market revolution, creation of a market economy. New inventions made production faster and cheaper. There were developments in transportation that increased economic activity. The country's different regions, the North, South, and the West, are becoming more interdependent. And finally, that interdependence makes some regions which had already abolished slavery complicit in its continuation in the South. All right, that is it for lecture number 27. In lecture number 28, we are still talking about the market revolution, but we are going to be talking more about the effects on society, some of those social effects that it had.